Have you ever walked into a place you've never seen before and suddenly thought, wait, I've been here before? You know you've never been there. You can't remember when you saw it, and yet the entire moment feels strangely familiar. That's déjà vu. And here's the really strange part. Your brain can make something feel familiar without giving you an actual memory of it. So what's actually happening inside your head? For a long time, déjà vu was treated as something mysterious. Some people thought it was a glimpse of the future. Others believed it could be connected to memories from dreams or even past lives. But neuroscience has a much more interesting explanation. Your brain doesn't store memories as one single thing. Instead, remembering involves several different processes. One of them is called familiarity. Familiarity is the feeling that you've encountered something before, without necessarily knowing when or where. Think about seeing a stranger on the street. You suddenly think, I know that face, but you have no idea who the person is. That's familiarity. Recognition is different. Recognition means you can actually identify the memory. You see your childhood home, and you know exactly where you've seen it before. Déjà vu may happen when these two systems briefly get out of sync. Your brain generates a powerful feeling of familiarity, but the actual memory isn't there. So you get this incredibly strange experience. This feels familiar, but I don't know why. And that's exactly what makes déjà vu so convincing. But how could the brain make this mistake? One possibility involves the way your brain processes information. Your brain receives enormous amounts of sensory information every second. What you see, what you hear, where you are standing, the people around you, the shape of the room, the lighting, even tiny details you aren't consciously paying attention to. Your brain rapidly compares all of this information with patterns stored in memory. Usually, this happens so smoothly that you never notice it, but occasionally, the feeling of familiarity may appear before your brain has identified the actual source. It's almost like your brain says, "This is familiar," before it can answer, "From where?" And that tiny mismatch can create déjà vu. There's another fascinating possibility. Sometimes, a current situation may accidentally resemble an older memory. You may not consciously remember the original experience, but the structure of the situation can be similar. Maybe the room has a similar layout. The lighting is similar. Someone is standing in a similar position. The conversation has a familiar rhythm. You don't recognize the old memory itself, but your brain recognizes the pattern, and suddenly, the present moment feels like a repeat. Researchers have even studied déjà vu under controlled conditions. In virtual reality experiments, participants have been placed into different environments. Some scenes were designed to have similar spatial layouts. For example, one scene might have objects arranged in a particular pattern, while another completely different scene secretly uses a similar layout. Participants sometimes reported stronger feelings of déjà vu when the new scene resembled an earlier one. This suggests that familiarity can be triggered by similarities we don't consciously notice. But there is an even stranger side to déjà vu. Scientists have learned a lot about it from people with epilepsy. Certain types of temporal lobe epilepsy can involve intense déjà vu experiences. During medical procedures, researchers have sometimes observed that stimulating specific areas of the brain can produce sensations of familiarity or déjà vu. This is important because it tells us something. Déjà vu isn't just a strange thought. It can be connected to specific neural systems involved in memory and familiarity. One important region is the medial temporal lobe, an area deeply involved in memory. Structures such as the hippocampus and surrounding regions help your brain recognize places, events, and experiences. But don't imagine that there's a single déjà vu button inside your brain. It's more complicated than that. Different parts of the memory system communicate with each other, and déjà vu may happen when the signals involved in familiarity and recollection don't line up perfectly. So, for a brief moment, your brain may give you the feeling of remembering without giving you the memory itself, and that's why déjà vu feels so strange. You aren't simply thinking, I remember this. You're experiencing something closer to, I know I've experienced this, even though you can't prove it. There's also something important about déjà vu that you might not realize. It usually doesn't last very long. The intense feeling often disappears within seconds, and once it disappears, you can usually recognize that the experience was strange rather than an actual memory. That's another clue that the feeling itself may be temporary. Your brain generated a powerful sense of familiarity, then quickly corrected the mismatch. So, is déjà vu a glimpse into the future? Probably not. Is it proof that you've lived the same moment before? There is no scientific evidence for that, and it's not necessarily a sign that something is wrong with your brain. For most people, occasional déjà vu is a normal experience. In fact, The strange thing isn't that your brain sometimes makes this mistake. The strange thing is how convincing the mistake can feel. Your brain is constantly trying to answer one question. Have I experienced this before? Most of the time, it gets the answer right. But occasionally, the feeling of familiarity arrives without the memory. And for a few seconds, the present feels like the past. That's déjà vu. Not your brain seeing the future. Not a hidden memory from another life. Just one of the most fascinating reminders that your experience of reality is being constructed by your brain, moment by moment. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more strange questions, fascinating experiments, and animated explanations of how the world and your brain really works.